I thought I had a great life. I was living the American dream, or at least what I thought was the American dream. My wife Jessica and I had been married for over 6 years, and we had this picture-perfect life. We lived in a nice suburban neighborhood in Dallas, Texas, with a decent home, a couple of dogs, and a good circle of friends. Everybody looked at us and thought we were that couple who had it all together. But like most things that look good from the outside, reality was a different story. I started noticing little changes in Jessica. Her late nights were becoming more frequent, and when I'd ask her about it, she'd wave me off, saying she was just working late on projects for her job. Jessica was a marketing manager for a tech firm and her job was demanding. I wanted to believe her, but deep down I felt something was off. One night, I got home early from work. I had planned a surprise dinner for us, but when I walked in, the house was eerily quiet. I called out for her, but there was no answer. I checked the usual places, the kitchen, the living room, even our bedroom, nothing. I went to the laundry room to grab a bottle of wine and I found her phone buzzing on the counter. A message popped up from a number I didn't recognize. "Can't wait to see you this weekend. We have to make up for lost time. XOXO." My gut dropped. I didn't want to believe what I was reading, but the signs were all there. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I waited. I wanted to hear her side of the story without jumping to conclusions, but the weight of what I discovered was heavy. I felt like I was living in a fog, and every time I replayed her words about working late, I felt a sickening knot in my stomach. When she finally came home, I confronted her in the living room. I could see the panic in her eyes as I held her phone. "What's this about, Jess?" I demanded, my voice steady, though my heart raced. She tried to deny it, claiming it was just a coworker being friendly. I could see the lies spilling out of her mouth like a flood. "You know how it is, honey. People are just being nice. You know how the office can get." I was furious. I didn't want to shout or make a scene, but each excuse felt like a dagger. I demanded the truth. The reality of her betrayal hit me like a freight train. "Are you cheating on me, Jess?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The silence that followed was deafening, and when she finally broke, it was like a dam bursting. "Yes, okay. I've been seeing someone. A travel blogger, all right. He's everything you're not. He's spontaneous, adventurous, and he actually travels the world." There was a bitterness in her tone that shocked me, as if she had been waiting for this moment to let it all out. I felt my heart shatter. All those nights she claimed to be working late were spent with this guy, living a life I thought we were building together. Each word she threw at me felt like a betrayal, another blow to my heart. The moment stretched on, and I could hardly process the whirlwind of emotions flooding through me: anger, sadness, disbelief. But I wasn't going to let her see how much this hurt. I stood up, my mind racing as I realized this was my turning point. I had given everything to this marriage, and here she was throwing it away for some travel blogger who probably didn't care about her. There was no way I was going to let her dictate my next move. I made the decision right then and there. I would not be a victim of this. I was going to take control of my life, and I would make her regret the day she chose him over me. It was time to start my own adventure. I would build a luxury travel business, something that would not only help me heal but also show her that I could thrive without her. In that moment of clarity, I felt a sense of power wash over me. I was ready to turn the tables and show her that I could live my dream, even if it meant leaving her behind. Part one of my journey had begun. After that night, I felt like I had been thrust into a different world. The shock of Jessica's betrayal was still fresh, and the anger simmered just below the surface. But in the chaos of my emotions, a strange sense of clarity emerged. I realized I didn't want to wallow in sadness or anger. I wanted to take control of my narrative. I didn't need her to define my happiness or my life's direction. Once I settled into this new mindset, I started mapping out my plan. I used my evenings to research the luxury travel market. It was a world I had always been fascinated by but never believed I had the means to enter. I scoured the internet for resources, joined travel forums, and absorbed everything I could about luxury destinations, travel planning, and the business side of it all. I had my day job to fall back on, but I felt the fire in my gut urging me to move faster. I quickly realized that part of what made travel bloggers successful was their social media presence. They showcased their adventures in a way that made you feel like you were right there with them. I knew I needed to establish my own brand, so I started setting up social media accounts dedicated to travel. As I started crafting my online identity, I decided to document my journey from the very beginning. I posted about the research I was doing and shared my visions for the experiences I wanted to offer. I even started reaching out to luxury hotels, asking for partnerships or any promotional deals. I was surprised at how receptive many of them were. I guess they appreciated my enthusiasm and fresh perspective. Meanwhile, I tried to keep things as normal as possible at home. Jessica was still living there, and we had this uneasy coexistence. She would often come home late, talking about work and her business meetings, but I could see through the thin veneer of her excuses. I couldn't help but feel a mixture of pity and anger toward her. She was attempting to keep her life intact while betraying everything we had built together. It was during one of our awkward dinners that she tried to engage me in conversation. "So, how's the travel business coming along?" she asked, her tone casual, but I could sense the tension behind it. I shot her a glance. "It's going well. I've been talking to some hotels about potential partnerships," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me struggle. I could feel her evaluating me, perhaps realizing that I was moving on without her. A few weeks later, I decided to take a leap and booked my first trip. I had saved up enough money to travel to Mexico, where I planned to explore the luxury resorts and experiences firsthand. It was exhilarating. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive and excited. The thought of leaving everything behind for a few days filled me with an intoxicating sense of freedom. I arrived in Cancun and was immediately struck by the beauty around me, the vibrant colors, the sounds of the ocean, and the luxury of the resort. I spent my days exploring, networking, and taking photos to share on social media. I reached out to influencers and other bloggers to gain insights into how to market myself effectively. Every moment spent there reminded me what I had been missing while wrapped up in the mundane routine of my old life. Back home, Jessica's demeanor shifted. She was desperate to regain any semblance of connection between us. She called me more often, asking about my trip and expressing interest in my plans. I could see her trying to reel me back in, but I was firm. I wasn't going to fall for her games or manipulations anymore. During my trip, I met a few people who were also in the travel industry. They shared their stories, successes, and failures, and I felt a rush of inspiration. One woman in particular, named Mia, was a travel consultant who had started her business from scratch. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and I knew I wanted to learn from her. As I soaked in the sunshine and explored the local culture, I made connections that would prove invaluable. I realized that building a luxury travel business wasn't just about the destinations. It was about creating experiences that would resonate with people on a personal level. This was my chance to carve out my own identity separate from Jessica's shadow. By the time I returned home, I was filled with ideas and a renewed sense of purpose. I had a plan. I would promote trips that centered around unique experiences, tailored specifically for each traveler. I envisioned bespoke luxury trips that went beyond typical travel itineraries. But as I stepped back into the house, the reality of my situation hit me. Jessica was still there, and her presence felt more suffocating than ever. It was clear that I had to confront not just my feelings about her, but also the life we had constructed. I had a choice to make: continue living in this uncomfortable limbo or cut ties once and for all. The fire within me was burning bright, and I was ready to make my move. The moment I walked back into the house after my trip, I felt the weight of the last few weeks pressing down on me. The thrill of my adventure was still fresh in my mind, but as soon as I saw Jessica sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, the reality of our situation struck me again. She looked up as I entered, her expression a mix of relief and apprehension. "How was Mexico?" she asked, a bit too casually. "It was amazing," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "I made some great connections and learned a lot about the luxury travel industry." Her eyebrows raised slightly, and I could see her trying to gauge my mood. There was a flicker, something in her eyes, a hint of jealousy, perhaps, but I didn't care. I had my own life to focus on now, and I wasn't going to let her derail my progress. The next few days were filled with a growing sense of urgency. I immersed myself in my work, drafting business plans and creating marketing materials. Each accomplishment felt like a step further away from the betrayal that had shattered my trust. But while I was busy building my future, Jessica became more insistent about our relationship. She would drop hints trying to reignite some spark between us, but I was having none of it. One evening, she approached me just as I was finishing up some emails. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. I turned to look at her, taking a breath. "About what? You've made your feelings pretty clear. Please," she pleaded. "I know I messed up, but I want to fix this. I miss you. I miss us." I felt a wave of anger rise in me again. "You mean you miss the idea of us? You were out there having your fun while I was left to pick up the pieces. Come on, Ryan, I made a mistake. I was lonely and I got caught up in something I didn't think would go this far." "Lonely?" I shot back. "You chose to cheat on me with some travel blogger. You didn't just make a mistake, you made a choice." Her defenses started crumbling and I could see the guilt wash over her. "I know, and I hate myself for it, but can't we try to work through this? I'm willing to do whatever it takes." I took a moment to weigh my options. Part of me wanted to find a way to fix things. After all, we had invested so much time and effort into our marriage. But then I remembered the excitement I felt in Mexico, the freedom, the possibilities ahead of me. "No," I said finally, my tone firm. "I don't think we can fix this. I'm done trying to salvage something that's already broken." Her face fell, and for a moment I felt a pang of guilt for being so harsh. But I steeled myself. "I'm starting my own travel business, and I'm moving forward without you." Jessica's eyes widened in shock. "Moving forward? You're just going to throw everything away? What about all those years we spent together?" I shook my head. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm reclaiming my life. You made your choice, Jess. It's time for me to make mine." The emotional impact of this confrontation sent me spiraling. It was like I was stepping onto a tightrope stretched over a chasm of uncertainty. On one side, I could see my old life with Jessica. It was comfortable, but it was filled with betrayal. On the other side, I saw my new life, a life I was beginning to build, filled with potential and adventure. It was terrifying but exhilarating at the same time. As the days turned into weeks, I focused on my business. I attended networking events, collaborated with other travel professionals, and even started blogging about my journey. My social media following began to grow, and I could feel my excitement building along with it. I was finding my voice and my passion, and it felt incredible. But Jessica was still in the house, and the tension between us was palpable. She'd often try to engage me in small talk about my business, but I kept my responses curt. I was determined to keep my distance. One night she asked me if I was going to take her on any trips once the business got off the ground. I couldn't help but laugh. "You think I'd want to travel with you after what you did? That's rich." Her face fell again, and for the first time I felt a twinge of guilt, but I brushed it aside. I needed to channel all my emotions into my work. Eventually, I reached out to Mia, the travel consultant I had met in Mexico, for guidance. She agreed to meet up for coffee, and I was eager to absorb her knowledge. As I sat in the cafe, I felt a rush of excitement. Talking to her about my ideas made me realize just how far I had come since that night of discovery. As we chatted, I felt like I was finally stepping into my own identity, separate from Jessica. Mia was supportive and encouraging, and I could feel my confidence growing with every conversation. She introduced me to new contacts and even offered to help me refine my business plan. By the time I left that meeting, I felt like a weight had been lifted. I was no longer just the betrayed husband. I was becoming a businessman, a creator of experiences. And with each passing day, I was inching closer to a life I had only dreamed of. But while I was busy carving out my future, I couldn't ignore the fact that I still had to confront the consequences of Jessica's actions. I was done being a bystander in my own life, and it was time to address the elephant in the room once and for all. I had built a new identity, but it was time to fully sever ties with the old life that had held me back for so long. The next step was clear. I needed to move out. Deciding to move out was one of the hardest choices I had to make. I had spent years living in that house with Jessica, creating memories that now felt tainted by betrayal, but staying there was becoming unbearable. Every corner of the house echoed with our past, and I felt suffocated by the reminders of what we once had. I knew it was time to cut the final strings that bound me to her, but I wasn't sure how to navigate this next chapter. One evening, after spending hours drafting plans for potential travel packages, I finally gathered the courage to tell Jessica my decision. She was in the living room, still scrolling through her phone, and I felt a knot in my stomach as I approached her. "Can we talk?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Sure, what's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "I'm moving out, Jess." The change in her demeanor was instantaneous. "What? You can't be serious. Where will you go?" "I've been looking into apartments," I said, forcing myself to maintain eye contact. "It's time for both of us to move on, and I can't do that while living here with you." Her face crumpled in disbelief. "You can't just leave like this. We can work things out. I'm willing to try. Are you?" I interrupted, feeling the anger bubbling up again. "You're the one who cheated. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." She opened her mouth to argue, but then seemed to deflate. "Is this really what you want?" I nodded, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. "Yes, it is. I need space to build my own life." There was a long silence between us, and I could see her processing what I had said. I half expected her to throw a fit or beg me to stay, but instead she sat quietly, her gaze fixed on the floor. "I never meant to hurt you, Ryan," she finally whispered, her voice breaking. I felt a pang of sympathy, but I quickly quashed it. "You did, Jess. You hurt me more than I can even explain, but I won't let your choices define my future." With that, I left the room, my heart racing. I wasn't looking back, and I wasn't second-guessing myself. I spent the next few days packing up my things, going through the memories that had once filled those boxes with joy but now carried only sadness. It felt like a cleansing ritual, removing pieces of my past to make room for the new life I was determined to create. Moving day arrived, and I had to mentally prepare myself for the final goodbye. I had rented a small apartment not too far from our house. It was modest, but it felt like a fresh start. I could already envision the kinds of experiences I wanted to curate, the clients I would serve, and the adventures I would embark on. As I loaded boxes into my car, Jessica stood hesitantly in the doorway, watching me. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing how much it pained me to leave. "Do you really think this will make you happy?" she called out. I paused for a moment, looking back at her. "I have to try, don't I? I can't keep living in the past." With that, I got in my car and drove away, feeling a rush of freedom. The further I drove from that house, the lighter I felt. It was as if a burden had been lifted off my shoulders. I was finally taking control of my life, and I was going to make it something worth living. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my work. I connected with more travel industry professionals, expanded my social media presence, and began crafting bespoke travel experiences. I felt a new sense of purpose, and it was invigorating. I was no longer the betrayed husband hiding in the shadows. I was becoming a man on a mission. But the emotional aftermath of my separation from Jessica lingered. Late at night, when the silence of my new apartment enveloped me, I sometimes felt a pang of loneliness. I missed the companionship we had shared, but it was a fleeting thought. I reminded myself of the reasons I had left, of her betrayal, her lies, and the many nights I had spent wondering if I was enough for her. I began to establish a routine. I started each day with a morning run, followed by a few hours of business planning and networking. I also made it a point to get to know my new neighborhood. The local coffee shop quickly became a favorite spot, and I struck up conversations with the owners, who were enthusiastic about supporting local entrepreneurs. One day, as I sat in the cafe with my laptop, I noticed a familiar face walk in. It was Mia, the travel consultant I had met in Mexico. She spotted me and came over, her smile brightening the chilly morning. "Hey, "Funny seeing you here," she said, pulling up a chair. We chatted casually about the travel industry and my latest projects. I could feel a connection forming between us, one that was different from what I'd had with Jessica. Mia was driven and passionate, and I appreciated her insights. As we spoke, I realized how much I enjoyed our conversations. She was encouraging and genuine. After a couple of hours, she suggested we collaborate on a travel package together. "I think we could create something really special," she said. "Combining your fresh perspective with my experience could really appeal to clients." The idea thrilled me. It was an opportunity to not only grow my business but also to create something meaningful with someone who shared my passions. As we discussed details, I felt a rush of excitement wash over me. For the first time in a long while, I was looking forward to the future. But even as I embraced this new chapter, a part of me knew that I still had to come to terms with the emotional chaos Jessica had left behind. I was ready to forge ahead, but I also had to learn how to let go of the pain and betrayal that had haunted me. It was time to face my feelings head-on and acknowledge the reality of my situation. I realized that while Jessica had broken my heart, it was my choice to either stay broken or begin to heal. I chose healing, and with that choice came the promise of new beginnings. The road ahead would be full of challenges, but I was finally ready to embrace them. It was time to reclaim my happiness, and I was determined to do just that. As the weeks turned into months, I continued to build my travel business with Mia. Our collaboration grew into something truly special. We began crafting unique luxury travel experiences that catered to discerning clients looking for adventure and relaxation. With each successful project, I felt more and more fulfilled. The initial shock and betrayal from Jessica began to fade into the background, replaced by a growing sense of purpose and excitement for the future. Mia and I worked closely together, often meeting at the cafe or even taking trips to scout potential destinations. With her experience and my fresh ideas, we created packages that combined local culture, luxury accommodations, and unforgettable adventures. We even featured unique elements like surprise excursions tailored specifically for each traveler. It felt amazing to see our ideas come to life. But alongside my professional achievements, I still grappled with the emotional scars left by Jessica. I often found myself reflecting on our time together, questioning how things had gone so wrong. I thought about the love we once shared and the dreams we had built, only to watch them crumble under the weight of her betrayal. It was during one of these reflective moments that I realized I had been holding onto resentment and anger longer than necessary. Sure, Jessica had hurt me, but I needed to stop allowing her actions to dictate my happiness. I had moved out, started a new business, and was on the path to pursuing my passion. It was time to forgive, not for her sake, but for my own. One evening, I decided to write Jessica a letter. I felt a mix of apprehension and relief as I poured my thoughts onto paper. I expressed my feelings, my journey of healing, and how I had come to terms with the end of our relationship. I wanted her to know that I had moved on, but also that I recognized the importance of letting go of the anger that had held me back. After finishing the letter, I felt lighter. I wasn't planning to send it. Rather, it was a therapeutic exercise to help me release my pent-up feelings. I hoped it would mark the end of that chapter in my life, allowing me to fully embrace my new beginning. Meanwhile, Mia and I continued to grow closer. There was something about her that made it easy to connect. She was down-to-earth and passionate about travel, but what I admired most was her resilience. She had faced her own challenges in the industry and had overcome them with grace. One evening, after a particularly productive day of brainstorming, we decided to treat ourselves to dinner at a local restaurant known for its exquisite cuisine. As we sat across from each other, sipping wine and sharing laughs, I felt a spark of something new. It was exhilarating yet terrifying. The fear of letting someone in again loomed over me. As the night progressed, we talked about everything, our dreams, our pasts, and the adventures we wanted to embark on together. I found myself increasingly drawn to her, not just as a business partner but as someone who understood me on a deeper level. It was refreshing to share my thoughts without the cloud of betrayal and mistrust that had haunted my past relationship. When the waiter brought dessert, Mia leaned in playfully, her eyes sparkling. "So, what's next for us? Any exciting trips planned?" Paused, considering the possibilities. "Actually, I was thinking we should take a small trip together. Nothing too extravagant, but maybe a weekend getaway to test out one of our packages." Her smile widened. "I'd love that. Where are we thinking?" We spent the rest of the night planning our getaway, and I felt a renewed sense of hope. For the first time since the divorce, I was excited to share my life with someone. Mia had shown me that trust could be rebuilt, and that I could be happy again. However, as my connection with Mia deepened, I knew I had to confront Jessica one last time. I hadn't seen her since I moved out, and I felt it was important to clarify my intentions. I wanted to make sure there were no lingering feelings or misunderstandings, especially as I was beginning to pursue something new with Mia. I called Jessica, my heart pounding as I dialed her number. When she answered, there was an awkward pause before she spoke. "Ryan, is everything okay?" "Yeah, I just wanted to talk for a minute," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Can we meet?" She agreed, and we set a time to meet at a park nearby. The thought of seeing her again filled me with anxiety, but I knew it was necessary. When I arrived, I spotted Jessica sitting on a bench, her posture tense. I took a deep breath before approaching her. Hey, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. We exchanged pleasantries, and I could see the strain in her eyes. "I wanted to talk about us," I started. "About everything that happened." She nodded, her expression shifting from guarded to vulnerable. "I've thought about it a lot, Ryan. I know I messed up, and I'm really sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," I said, my heart softening slightly. "But I need to be honest, I've moved on. I'm building my own life and pursuing my business." Her eyes flickered with emotion. "And what about us? Is there any chance for us to fix this?" I shook my head gently. "No, Jess, I don't think we can go back to what we had. I've learned a lot about myself during this time, and I realize now that I need to focus on my own happiness." Tears welled in her eyes, but I stood my ground. "I need you to understand that. I wish you well, but I can't be part of your life anymore." She nodded, wiping her tears. "I really am sorry, Ryan. I hope you find what you're looking for." The conversation felt cathartic. It was the closure I had been seeking. I could finally let go of the last remnants of our relationship. As I walked away from the park, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. With that chapter finally closed, I returned to my life with renewed determination. My business was thriving, and my connection with Mia was blossoming. I was ready to embrace the future and pursue my dreams without the shadows of my past holding me back. It was time to fully step into the life I had always wanted, and I was excited for every step along the way. Life began to settle into a new rhythm after my conversation with Jessica. I was no longer burdened by the weight of my past, and I felt lighter as I fully embraced this new chapter. My business continued to flourish, and my partnership with Mia became a cornerstone of my newfound happiness. Each day brought fresh opportunities, and I was determined to seize every single one. As we crafted travel experiences together, I found a renewed sense of purpose. We were offering clients unique journeys that not only showcased beautiful destinations, but also allowed them to immerse themselves in local cultures. With Mia's expertise and my creative flair, we began to build a reputation in the industry. Our social media following grew, and clients started reaching out for personalized travel packages. One evening, while we were working late at the office, I looked over at Mia, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the laptop screen. She was focused, her brow furrowed in concentration. I felt a rush of gratitude for her presence in my life. She had been the light in the midst of my darkest moments. "Mia," I said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I just wanted to say thank you for everything. I don't know where I'd be without you." She looked up, her expression softening. "You've done all the hard work, Ryan. I'm just here to support you. You're building something amazing, and I'm thrilled to be part of it." Her words warmed my heart, and in that moment, I realized just how far I had come. I was no longer that heartbroken man who had been left in the dust. Now, I was a man with a vision and someone who was actively creating his own future. As we approached the final quarter of the year, I decided to host a launch party for our travel business. I wanted to celebrate our achievements and invite friends and colleagues to showcase our offerings. The idea of sharing our success with others filled me with excitement, and Mia wholeheartedly agreed to help plan the event. The night of the launch party arrived and the atmosphere was electric. We transformed the venue into a cozy and inviting space, adorned with travel-inspired decorations and photographs from our recent trips. Our friends, potential clients, and industry contacts filled the room, and I felt a surge of pride as I welcomed everyone. As the evening unfolded, I took a moment to step back and observe. Laughter and conversation filled the air, and I saw people connecting over shared interests and wanderlust. It was a celebration of new beginnings, and I felt a sense of fulfillment wash over me. Mia joined me, holding 2 glasses of wine, and we toasted to our success. "To new adventures," she said, her eyes sparkling. "To new adventures," I echoed, feeling a genuine smile spread across my face. As the night continued, I took the opportunity to share our story and our vision with guests. People were genuinely excited about our offerings, and I could see a spark of interest in their eyes. It was validating to see how far we had come, and the support from our friends and colleagues reaffirmed that we were on the right path. Later in the evening, as I mingled with guests, I noticed Jessica standing at the edge of the room. She had come uninvited, a mix of apprehension and curiosity on her face. I felt a surge of emotions, but I reminded myself that I was in a different place now. I no longer held anger or resentment toward her. I had moved on. As I approached her, she offered a tentative smile. "Ryan, congratulations. This looks amazing." "Thanks, Jess," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "It's been a lot of hard work, but it's worth it." "I can see that. I'm glad you're doing well," she said, her voice sincere. I took a moment to gauge her demeanor. She seemed genuinely happy for me, and I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. "I appreciate that. It was tough, but I'm grateful for the journey I've taken." Jessica nodded, and we exchanged a few more pleasantries before she excused herself. As she walked away, I felt an unexpected sense of closure. This was the final piece of my healing process, recognizing that while our time together was over, I could still wish her well without it affecting my own happiness. As the night wound down, I found myself standing beside Mia, who had been mingling with guests and sharing her insights about our travel packages. I looked at her, feeling grateful for the partnership we had built. "Thanks for being here tonight. It means a lot to me." She smiled back, her eyes warm. "I'm proud of you, Ryan. You've come so far, and I'm excited to see where this journey takes us." In that moment, I knew I had made the right choice in pursuing my dreams. I was no longer defined by my past or by the hurt I had experienced. Instead, I was stepping into a future filled with possibility, with someone who understood my ambitions and aspirations. As I reflected on my journey, it dawned on me that betrayal had been a catalyst for my transformation. It pushed me to discover my own strength and resilience, qualities I never knew I possessed. I had learned that life could be unpredictable, but within that unpredictability lay the opportunity for growth, healing, and new beginnings. With Mia by my side and my business thriving, I felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. I was no longer just a man left behind. I was a man on a mission, eager to explore the world and create unforgettable experiences for others. In that moment of clarity, I realized the truth. Sometimes, the end of one chapter is merely the beginning of another, and I couldn't wait to see where this new adventure would take me.